Arcus 1. I would start at the beginning, but I don't know when that was or how long ago I was banished to this prison. What I know is I've been observing and studying the inner workings of this entity that had once been, well, an obsession. How ironic that I should be sentenced to live out the rest of my days in the very thing I sought to destroy. An obsession turned prison, as all obsessions are, I suppose. Arcus 2. I am going through some past scribblings and the notes of the previous unknown occupants, and I realize I should at least try to organize them. Reading these notes, I decipher several voices who I am aptly calling the unknown few, who like myself had a fixation with the entity, and who like myself had an ability to experience the memories encoded in the fog. I will include my past scribblings and number them as best as I can, referring to them as notes obscura, or just obscura, to try and piece together how long I've actually been here. I think I may have found my first ramblings amongst the half-destroyed journals of the unknown occupants, who struggled with infinite possibilities of whiling away the time except the one they probably miss the most, the one I miss the most. Friendship, companionship, sitting with my father drinking whiskey and watching the ancients swim across the night sky, or just losing time with a friend in a hearty conversation about the merits of art, music, laughter, and stories. All I have now are the memories of others. Second-hand experiences that constantly remind me of things lost and half-remembered. Arcus 3. Spent the entire day doing unnecessary mundane tasks, like sweeping the floor, dusting statues and furniture, and polishing silverware, all in a fairly successful attempt to keep my mind busy. I imagine once I have the Arcus working as it should be, I'll be able to keep myself distracted with what seems to be dreaming black fog. Toward the evening, I tinkered with the Arcus, and when this proved frustrating, I worked out mathematical equations and theories while talking to myself and engaging in stimulating debate and what I believe to be meaningful discourse. One of the lessons of those on assignment within the boundaries of an ancient is to keep to a rigorous routine of writing, reading, and self-talk to not let the pillars of the intellect crumble under the weight of laziness, alienation, and boredom. Thinking and speaking are skills, and like any skill, they can decay and wither away if not practiced regularly. Arcus 4. Stories and journals are scattered everywhere. So much to read, and yet I find myself drawn to the scribblings and renditions of the unknown creator I'm calling the Mad Designer. Journals filled with the wild sketches and musings of people I imagine are caught in other parts of this living dimension. People juxtaposed with other terror worlds and timelines that make little or no sense to who they are or where they're from. The illustrations and notes are foolish, absurd, and quite contradictory, and yet they bring moments of levity to my life, which does the soul good. I suppose it's a form of absurd escapism I turn to when I'm not reading the more traditional stories. Interestingly enough, I found 17 versions of a story featuring a killer named Evan, written by 17 versions of the same author from the Omniverse. 17 similar stories with sometimes subtle, sometimes significant differences. What I find particularly interesting is how the stories are written as fiction in one world and non-fiction in another. It reminds me of Universis Alveo, a theory that suggests that the human mind might very well be equipped with a powerful networking mechanism that reaches out to other worlds for wisdom and knowledge from our other selves. Some can use their minds in this way, and others can't. The theory suggests that those who have experienced trauma in their formative years detach from their reality, allowing them to explore other realities and worlds with relative ease. Artists like magicians and shamans see small things in the big, unexplainable, endless dream that is the omniverse, and they bring these ideas or insights back to entertain, enlighten, and inspire the world. Fiction in one world, non-fiction in another. Everything is real, or nothing is. And here in the Chamber of Blood, there are countless horror stories of every variety. So many that it seems to me that one of the unknown prisoners was collecting these stories as a way to discover more about their imprisonment, the entity, and the terrible screams coming from the surrounding abyss. Whether this is true or not, I'm not sure, but what I do know is I spent the whole night reading my favorite stories out loud, like my father used to do by the fireplace. And the entire time I couldn't help but wonder, how could anyone have accessed and assembled such a rich collection of notes, journals, and stories? I have no immediate answer, but I suspect by the texture and density of the fog that I may be in a place as complex, mysterious, and misunderstood as a black hole, a living, breathing, all-consuming black hole, the serpent of infinity that gorges on its tail, that eats itself endlessly as it spirals downward into the cosmic Fibonacci stew that is life incomprehensible.
There are things of the abyss better left unexplored and undiscovered. Things beyond our understanding. For to see or hear or try to comprehend them is to lose one's grip on reality and plunge into a fathomless pit of madness. Of the entity I know little if anything at all. What I have witnessed and concluded through my imprisonment within its timeless living boundaries is the entity seems to move through the cosmos like a primordial titan. An incomprehensible serpent of chaos, consuming people and worlds for reasons I cannot even begin to comprehend, and won't even try. Searching for a way to escape this endless horror has been my sole preoccupation. To this end, I study memories from the fog. Memories from survivors who have escaped, or who will escape this timeless dimension. Snatched from worlds, not unlike my own, these survivors are forced to suffer endless agonies that seem to nourish the entity with some type of indescribable psychic sustenance. Some embrace the endless trials as they search for a way to escape. Others don't realize they are caught in an endless cycle and live the horror anew every time they are resurrected, activating generators, repowering the gate, running for their lives, only to do it all over again. Some survivors lose their ability to feel anything. These survivors are flushed into the void. Killers reign within the countless realms of this dimension. Marked and corrupted, these twisted souls are tools for the entity. Perfect tools of hate, rage, and pain to reap horror and make merry hell for everyone. They know something's wrong. They know something's amiss. Something's not like it used to be, and yet they don't care. They don't care because it's better than it used to be. Much better. And they're free. Well, they're free so long as they serve the entity. free to be morbid kings of their own personal hell. Those who refuse their crown, who refuse to be kings of terror and torment, are corrupted into submission.
Fate. What is fate but a series of moments and choices that define our lives? Roses we want to remember, and thorns we can never forget. Futile as the thought experiment is, I sometimes wonder where I would be had I made different choices. I sometimes wonder if I had not been interested in Celestials, would I have even noticed the entity? Had I not witnessed the destruction of an entire world, would I have wanted to know more? Had I not gone against the Council, would I have been banished within the very thing I tried to destroy? There's a moment in all of our lives when our choices catch up to us. A moment that changes us forever. A moment of reckoning. Arcus 13. The series featuring Hattie and Jordan on Terra 717, or Haley and Jaden on Terra 1315, or even Hannah and Justin on Terra 238, are all titled Harbinger FM instead of the Harbinger of Hell, and they seem to have more insight on what the entity might be and how it corrupts and influences other worlds. Other Terra worlds have quite unique and sometimes contradictory versions of the Harbinger series, which make them difficult to track and interpret. But despite the discrepancies, each version seems to feature siblings trying to expose a nefarious cult devoted to the entity. I am currently searching the rift for the real memories that inspired all these adventures to see how close they are to the actual inspiration. I'm even wondering if Hattie and Jordan are here, trapped in the entity, and if they are, I'm hoping their memories will somehow help me find a way out of here. So far I have found nothing close to a real memory, but I did find another story from Terra 717 in which Hattie discusses a phenomenon she calls the overlap, and which other stories call the borrow, the coil, the bleed, etc. I'm currently keeping extensive notes on the Harbinger stories and their descriptions of the overlap, to see if any of them can give me insight into what this phenomenon actually is. What I've discovered so far is that almost all of these stories describe places where a dark dimension intersects with the world, and that these intersections seem to attract tragedy and misfortune. Some of these stories go so far as to claim broken or traumatized people can derive strange abilities from the vibrations emanating from these dark and cursed places. These people can ultimately use the bleed, my preferred name for the phenomenon, to access knowledge beyond the veil, as it were. The Harbinger series from Terra 719 is also worth noting because the details included by the author seem closest to what we studied back home concerning ancients and living dimensions. Not to mention what I've been able to discover by examining the memories of souls marooned here. Piece by piece, or rather story by story, I'm getting closer to salvation, or insanity, whichever comes first. Arcus 27. Most of the fiction featuring Hattie and Jordan end with one of the siblings disappearing, which accounts for some of the contradicting memories I've discovered in the fog. I believe there are several actual Hatties and Jordans stuck here with all the others. The memories I've studied so far conflict with one another so that they rarely line up with each other or the fictional stories I found in the Chamber of Blood. However, I must always remember that the collected stories and artwork in the chamber are interpretive. They are not exact. and they were more or less inspired by several versions of the siblings that exist, or will exist, or have existed within the endless tapestry that is the Omniverse. The truth is, the unknowns have collected so many stories that I don't know where to begin my research. Currently, I am focusing on the Red Crane and 12 to Midnight to better understand how the Black Fog works, and how the characters in these stories may have been able to interact with it to their advantage. There are also many versions of déjà vuism that relate a story of how one man found a way into the darkest recesses of this dimension to save the one he loved. But the story doesn't go into the details of how he managed to find a way in, and I will have to go through other versions of the story to see if there is any information that can help me. Better yet, I am hoping to find his actual memories within the fog, to give me a sense of how he found a way into this realm. Arcus, 34. There are countless horror stories about mist or fog in the chamber, and not all of them are related to the entity. The unknowns have done an adequate job at separating the relevant from the irrelevant stories, making my research on what others have written about this place and experience easier to conduct. What is it about the fog, and not just black fog, that has inspired so many stories throughout the Omniverse? Arcus, 41. The mad designer sketches are preposterous, yet entertaining. I just went through hundreds of sketches of monsters and killers in tuxedos and golfing attire. It makes no sense. And yet I found myself pinning these absurd illustrations in my study. They have absolutely no value to my investigation, yet they made me smile, even laugh, and perhaps that's enough. Perhaps helping me forget the horrors of this place, even for just a moment, turns the absurdity of these designs into a kind of medicine. As much as I take offense to the complete disregard the mad designer has for these characters, I can't help but search the Chamber of Blood for more Emperor Dwight illustrations. They are, so far, my favorite. Arcus, 42. Those who are referred to as the Unknowns have journeyed through this old one, hiding secret knowledge within the realms in strange ways. It is said that this knowledge is hidden in the fog, in the buildings, and even in the blood of creatures. It's hard to make sense of what they mean. What is clear is the Unknowns seem to be able to travel throughout realms with relative ease. The ability to move between realms alone would be a secret worth having, even if I would have to skin one of those horrific creatures lurking around in the fog. Arcus 54. The atmosphere of the realms is dark and grim, to say the least, but also ever-changing. I've already remarked that the atmosphere is misty, even foggy at times, and that this fog feels alive. It seems to contain swirls and streams of memories or imprints of beings from multiple terror worlds. It is as if the entity absorbs all the psychic energy and thoughts of beings it snatches as it journeys through the endless cosmos. I've used the Orus to study the black fog, and have come to 3 observations that will prove invaluable to finding a way home. First, the fog is rich in auric particles, leading me to believe this dimension is more conscious than it is material. Second, I should be able to manifest anything I'm able to pull from rifts in the fog, using techniques passed down from my family. Third, the entity is far more ancient than we ever suspected back home, And most of our theories and conjectures were wrong. The rich presence of auric particles in cells suggest it is one of the original ones, an ancient.